Section 2 of The Lost Oases by Ahmad Muhammad Hassanayn. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2, The Planning of the Journey. This is the story of a journey which I made in 1923 from Sollum on the Mediterranean to El Obeid in the Sudan, some 2,200 miles. In the course of it, I was fortunate enough to discover two lost oases, Arkanu and Owenat, which previously had not been known to geographers. My journey was primarily a scientific expedition, but I have tried in this book to avoid wearying the reader with technical matters and to write a straightforward narrative which may be of some interest even to those who are not acquainted with Egypt, the Sudan, or the Libyan desert. It had always been my greatest ambition to penetrate to Kufra, a group of oases in the Libyan desert which had only once been visited by an explorer. In 1879, the intrepid German Rolfs had succeeded, but he had barely escaped with his life, and all his notebooks and the results of his scientific observations were destroyed. In 1915, I had been fortunate enough to meet in Cairo Sayyid Idris el-Senussi, the famous head of the Senussi Brotherhood, when he was returning from a pilgrimage to Mecca. The capital of the Senussi is Kufra, and when in 1917 I went on a mission to Sayyid Idris with Colonel the Honorable Milo Talbot, C.B.R.E., a distinguished officer who had retired from the Egyptian army, but had returned to the service during the Great War, and renewed my acquaintance with that notable man at Zutina, a little port near Jedabia in Cyrenaica, I seized the opportunity and told him of my ambition. Sayyid Idris was most sympathetic, and asked me to let him know when I proposed to make the expedition, so that he might give me the help and countenance without which a journey to Kufra could not be undertaken. I met him again at Akrama near Tobruk, and told him then that I would set out as soon as I was free from my war duties. At Tobruk, Francis Rodd, an old Balliol friend, was with me, and we decided that we would go together. When the war was over, Mrs. Rosita Forbes, now Mrs. A. McGrath, brought me a letter of introduction from Mr. Rodd and asked that she might join us. We proceeded to plan an expedition à trois, but when the time came, Mr. Rodd was prevented from making one of the party. Finally, in 1920, Mrs. Forbes and I set out by ourselves, and with the friendly cooperation of the Italian authorities and the promised countenance and assistance of Sayyid Idris, who provided us with our caravan, we reached Kufra in January 1921. But this trip to Kufra, interesting as it was, only tempted me to explore the vast unknown desert which lay beyond. There were rumors, too, of lost oases which even the people of Kufra knew only by hearsay and tradition, and I returned to Cairo, resolved to make another expedition, and instead of coming straight back from Kufra, as Mrs. Forbes and I had done, to strike south across the unknown desert until I came to Wadai and the Sudan. Again, on the first trip, our only scientific instruments were an aneroid barometer and a prismatic compass. It was not, therefore, possible for me to make exact scientific observations, and all that I brought back was notes for a simple compass traverse of the route based on the meager material I had obtained. I was eager to check Rolf's observations and to determine once and for all the place of Kufra on the map. In 1922, then, I submitted my plan for a journey across the desert from the Mediterranean to the Sudan to His Majesty King Fuad I, who had been gracious enough to display his interest in my first trip by decorating me with a Medal of Merit. He sympathized warmly with my project, directed that I should be given a long leave of absence from my official duties, and later caused the expenses of the expedition to be defrayed by the Egyptian treasury. Indeed, my expedition could not possibly have met with the success that it did, had it not been for His Majesty's invaluable support. I completed my preparations, and in December 1922 I had collected my baggage in the house of my father, so that, in accordance with the ancient practice of my race, it might be blessed before I set out on my expedition across the Libyan desert. Chapter 3. The Blessing of the Baggage. Allah yasarad katak. May God guide your steps. The Arabic words fell reverently on the air of the great bare room, where candlelight and clouds of drifting incense contended for supremacy. Along the walls bulked a strange collection of baggage: big boxes, little boxes, sheepskin water bags, tin fantasses for carrying water, stuffed food sacks, bales of tents, carrying cases of leather and metal containing scientific instruments, and my own personal kit. After the bustle of getting everything corded and tied and strapped and arranged in order, a hush had come as we took our stand in the middle of the room. Outside, the Egyptian night had fallen, and across the garden the faint hum of the evening life of Cairo entered our windows. We were three: myself, Abdullahi, a Nubian from Aswan, who was to be one of my most trusted men, and Ahmed, also from Aswan, looking half a wreck after a spell of city life as he stood beside us, but later to prove himself an excellent cook, and on the trek the life of the party. Before us stood a tall old man with a white flowering beard, dressed in a deep orange-colored silk caftan. His delicately wrinkled features spoke of the peace that comes with saintliness. His long slim fingers clicked softly against each other the amber beads of a rosary. The white smoke from the incense in the wrought silver censer, held by a servant beside him, mounted in a delicate spiral. The saintly man put aside his rosary and lifted his hands, palms upward toward heaven. His voice, thin with age but clear with conviction, sounded the prayer for those about to go upon a journey. May God guide your steps, may He crown your efforts with success, and may He return you to us safe and victorious. He went around the room, swinging the censer rhythmically before each pile of baggage and uttering little prayers. This was the traditional ceremony of blessing of the baggage, made sacred by ages of Arab usage at the setting out of a caravan. It has largely fallen into disuse in these later days, but in the house of my father, who walks through life deeply absorbed in scholarship and the faith of the Prophet, it was the most natural thing in the world when the only son was going forth into the desert. As I stood before the saintly man to receive his blessing, I was no longer an Egyptian of today, but a Bedouin going back to the desert where his fathers' fathers had pitched their tents. Then I turned and I went to my father. For 15 years, since I had been sent to Europe for my education, our ways had rarely met. Sometimes I wished that I had studied the subjects in which he was interested, so that I might profit by his profound learning. He is going to live in another generation. Let him get the education he will need for it, my father had said once of a fellow scholar of mine. But now, when I was returning to the desert from which our forefathers had come, we knew what was in each other's minds and understood. After a moment's silence, he put his hands on my shoulders and prayed, "May safety be your companion, may God guide your steps, may He give you fortitude, and may He give success to your undertakings." The baggage blessed, Abdullah and Ahmed took the heavy stuff and set out for Sollum, leaving me with the scientific instruments and the cameras for more careful handling. On December 19th, I left Alexandria by boat for Sollum. End of section 2.